Hello, Minecraftians, and welcome back to Realm News. I am your host, the Dark Lord, the one who puts the real in realm and expands your mind one block at a time. And I am here today, this Saturday morning. It is currently 9:59, 1 minute away from 10 a.m. Central Standard Time in my studio in Manhattan, Kansas. And it is a dreary morning here. And I thought it would just be perfect to have this impromptu live recording for an impromptu show. I was supposed to be having a discussion with Michael TBH today. And c'est la vie, life happens. He wasn't able to make it. But I still have to make a show for Realm News, and I typically just record these and then I put them on a date that's typically 3 weeks out, like after I record. Well, I'm still going to publish this after I record for the people that aren't able to listen to this right now since it's so impromptu. But for those of you that are listening, welcome. Welcome to Realm News. I'm happy that you are all here listening on this beautiful Saturday morning. For some of you out there today, it's dreary, like I said. Also, hopefully that you're not being harassed by the drones on the East Coast if you're out there. I've been reading or hearing a lot about the drones out there on the East Coast and popping up in some new states. That's all very fascinating, but that's neither here nor there when it comes to Minecraft. We don't have aliens in the game yet. However, I do want to move on to what we're going to discuss this morning. It is Realm News Memory Lane is what I'm going to call it. And what I decided on doing is going back to my very first Reddit post. My very first Reddit post, which was almost, I'd say 10 months ago. It's getting close to a year. Realm News is almost a year old. We'll be celebrating. I started recording the first episodes around January 7th, I believe, last year or of this year. And the first episode, The Cleric's Cloak, published on Groundhog's Day, February 2nd. So we will be celebrating something on February 2nd when I publish an episode around that date. It won't be exactly on that date, but the episode closest will be celebrating a year. But anyways, I opened up a Reddit account before Realm News started. And that's what really got me kind of going with Realm News, inspired me to make a podcast, because I published a theory on the Mushroom Field Biomes, those islands in Minecraft that are extremely rare, the rarest in the Overworld. I actually don't know if that's still true now that the Pill Garden biome is in the game. Those seem quite rare, and I need to look that up. However, the mushroom, and I will always make that mistake calling them mushroom. Sorry. So I will, I'll be switching those words, mushroom and mushroom island, because I love the word mushroom. So, and mushrooms live there, the cows. So, anyways, I published a theory on Mushroom Island, the field biomes on Reddit, this whole elaborate one, and I'm going to read that to you, my theory on it, and then a couple comments that were made a year ago to that. And after I posted that, I was like, wow, that was really fun. I was already well into Minecraft and having a great time playing it, but what I really love is the lore and the theories that you can come up around the game, this beautiful sandbox game. So after I published that theory out there and got responses, I was like, this is great. I love speculating on this and hearing other people's feedback to what I post. And so it kind of encouraged me to make this podcast. And if you've been listening to the show, then you know Realm News, the title comes from the journal in the game, in my world, in my Realm server on Minecraft, where I write my own books. I think I'm writing my 5th Realm News journal in the game, and it's a literal journal that I write what I've been building or what's been happening, what creeper has exploded and destroyed something near me, or something that I've been working so hard on, just obliterated it. Well, anyways, moving on. Let's get into this theory, folks. Now that I've rambled, you're going to get a lot of rambling since I don't have a script to go off of. And that's, I typically put hours and hours and hours into a well refined down script. So this is me just off script today. So let's go on to the first theory. Okay. I'm going to pretty much read my theory by verbatim this post, the first post ever. Let me see if I have a date when I did this. I posted it, and it just says 1 year ago. And I go underneath the name Night of the Prairie, since I live on a prairie in Kansas. That's my handle on Reddit. So that's who posted this. And let me begin to read this right now, folks. Quote, and this is from the Dark Lord himself. I love theories, and I love the open world of Minecraft and all the mobs that inhabit the overworld, nether, and end. Also, I apologize for the lack of brevity. I personally have been playing on one seed for a year, now 2 years. Let me just correct that, 2 years now. I believe the end of December will be 2 years I've been in my world. And I have built a good sized empire. I have never enabled cheats until the Pale Garden came out and I had to rely, and I don't know if that's really a cheat. I think it is. To me, it is. To my own personal self. I had to get on chunk base and I looked up where my Pale Gardens were the closest in my world. I didn't look at anything else, nothing else. And I'm glad I did. I'm glad I used chunkbase.com and found them because honestly, if I was just naturally trying to wander around and discover one, it would have probably taken me a whole nother year. And I wasn't going to wait that long to get resin and the new pale oak white wood set. So, or the pale oak wood set. Sorry. Moving on. So, I used Chunkbase once, but during the course of a year in the empire business and exploration of this vast world, one cannot help but to develop theories on the digital existence of our avatar. I want to start this conversation to hear people's theories. I am going to posit my theory of the overworld. I will not get into my theory on the nether or the end today. I would like to start small and elaborate as we go. I see it logical to begin with where we begin our existence in the game, the overworld, and specifically on the zombies. My theory on the zombies and the overworld all derives from a fungal pandemic, meaning I believe mushrooms hundreds of years ago, perhaps thousands, before the player arrival became a mutagen to the builders. The builders being the ancient people who built the elaborate structures that we see in the ruins today. The builders, or the ancient builders, or however you want to call them, there's a lot of theories around those ancient structures, but many people agree that there had to have been some sort of ancient builder type people that built those sand or those desert temples and ancient ruins that lay all over the overworld. Anyways, in the overworld, we have pockets of mushroom biomes that are on islands where cows are discolored and have fungi growing off their bodies. Also, no zombies or other dangerous mobs reside here, which is odd. I believe a curious group of builders discovered by boat one of these mushroom blanketed islands. And I'm going to refer to them as builders because, well, ancient builders. A group of ancient builders discovered by boat one of these mushroom blanketed islands. Perhaps they ingested the mushrooms by making a stew or by eating one of the infected cows for food. The builders would not have evolved to coexist with this fungus that evolved in its own niche environment, isolated on an island, never making it to mainland. Meaning their immune system was not able to handle this xenobiotic. Once it did cross to the mainland from the contaminated builders who discovered the fungus, it was too late. Although it is postulated that the builders were a sophisticated society capable of magic, redstone tech, advanced architecture, centralized governments, religion, and medicine, alongside a deep culture involving music, elaborate metallurgy, and advanced underwater societies. They still could not find a cure fast enough for this fungal virus. Like many diseases of our human world, many endemics cross over from our domestic animals that we use for food and agriculture. It is logical to imagine that the introduction of this quote unquote zombie fungal virus thrived and took off when it came to the mainland and entered the populous centers. The fungus would then mutate to become infectious to the quote unquote builder population. This overtaking and hijacking the builder's nervous system, consequently, and in short, rendering the builder a zombie. Like all known zombie scenarios, it is contagious. This pandemic spread faster than a cure could be developed. In my world, I have came upon single outposts that looks new but is completely abandoned. The one I found was a small outpost made of snow in the tundra, an igloo. It had a redstone torch, a bed, dyed carpet, and some other tools left by some stranger. My theory on this is that the ancient builders were scrambling for a cure. I believe that they set up laboratories in very remote areas in the overworld in order to conduct their research for a cure to the zombie disease, a cure that was more conducive than our current potions. I believe the cold tundra would have been ideal to study this fungal virus, and the cold would have slowed the zombies down and helped keep the scientists safe. Now, I let's just end quote it right there. I want to go on and say I received quite a few lengthy theories surrounding this post that I made. But before I move on to comments, I kind of want to talk a little bit briefly about that igloo that I mentioned there after I get a sip of water. Now, that igloo has always fascinated me, and I still have it pretty much preserved. I built some infrastructure around it, and I've altered it some. But this igloo, when I first saw it, it just stood out in this cold, cold, snowy biome. It was humbling, and I mean, it was a nice sight to see something out there in the middle of nowhere. So I immediately ran into it, expecting to see someone in there, and there was no one there. It appeared abandoned. I later learned that typically these igloos have a basement below them that are quite secretive, and these basements have are pretty much like little dungeons, and a lot of the time they'll have a couple villagers down there that are zombie villagers, and there's a brewing stand down in these. In fact, if you go back to my snow biome episode, I believe episode 6, maybe 7, maybe 8, around there. Anyways, type in snow biome or snowy biome in wherever you listen to podcasts, and it should pop up. In that episode, I do mention this igloo and I go into further depth. In fact, I explain where you can find the igloos and everything. I might have to cut out a clip of that and share that with everyone that listens on Twitter one day. And actually, I might make an episode over the igloos soon. Who knows? However, it's very interesting to know that these were essentially little laboratories, like where they were experimenting on these zombie villagers. To me, I posted this that I just read to you, this theory, way before I read that there were basements underneath these igloos, which to me just further solidifies my theory here, because it appears to me that they're trying to come up with a cure down there for these zombie villagers, because you can find a golden apple, all things you need to cure one of them, and you could do so, or you could keep the items. It's kind of a choice for you. It's kind of funny how they put that in the game, and I talk about that in that episode. So I I find it very interesting, these igloos, and I think I still stick to that theory. I think it's quite solid that I think the igloo was research facilities where the ancient builders were trying to find a cure. And they do slow down hostile mobs. Obviously, there's strays out there all over snow biomes, but if snow covers a block out there, they can't generate hostile mobs. I do remember I made a mistake in that snow biome saying that they just don't generate, only strays can generate out in those snowy biomes. That was a mistake. I misread the wiki article. Mobs won't spawn where snow drops or falls, that layer of snow on a block. That's where I got crisscrossing information. Now, I'd like to move on to these other Reddit theories, these responses. I call them theories because these are other people's theories mixed in with these comments. And so I'm pretty much going to read these verbatim, and I may just comment as I go. As I said, I'm very off the script today. The only script I really have are reading these comments, but they're very interesting. And I remember these being interesting a year ago when I posted it and I was reading these, and I was just really getting entrenched into the lore of Minecraft. In fact, I think this was around the time, or maybe shortly after I made this post that I've been reading. I got my, oh my gosh, what is it called? The Mobestiary. Yes, the Mobestiary, which I fell in love with the pictures in that. I loved whichever artist made those illustrations. Okay, let's read this. Let me take a sip of my coffee, and I'm going to read. This is from an anonymous person. In fact, this account doesn't even exist anymore. Whoever left this comment, that's how old this is getting, which is kind of funny. Okay. Coffee is great. Now, let's go with anonymous here. Posted a year ago. Quote, I agree with the basics of your theory of the zombie plague type situation. But like my main thing that doesn't really make it work is the player can't get infected and neither can other cows. Setting aside that it's just a game and looking at the world standpoint, my headcanon is that the player was a last ditch experiment or something to be immune to all this mushroom plague thing. And that's why they are literally a god with nobody else around. I love that thought. Let me break away from that for a second. I love that thought. That's a interesting theory that we, the player, were the experiment. I'd never thought of that before until this. Which wouldn't that make sense? Wouldn't that make sense? Are we? I don't know. Maybe we are the artifact of an ancient civilization trying to find a cure for this world. I mean, we are the ones with the capabilities of building things and manipulating our environment. So I can see some validity in that statement. I don't know. What do you all think out there? I can't see your comments, by the way, because I'm streaming this through a podcast platform. So if you are listening through X now, or Twitter, now X, then I'm gonna have to read your comments later. But I'd love to hear what you're thinking. You can always reach out to me through my bio.link /realmnews, or go to my Twitter, and that link is right there that you can click on, and there's many ways you can reach out to me. Let me move on to this. Let me continue reading this comment here. And also, since they are a new experiment, seeing as how much the world changed already, it could also be maybe why we can't craft stuff like discs or horse armor. Steve is like a god baby and doesn't know everything, only taking what seems right, maybe, or the recipe book being some sort of partial lost knowledge by the builders sent to Steve to rebuild the world. I don't know. It's a fun thought. Laugh out loud. Would explain all the random beep, loot, and structures, though. I had to bleep that out myself. Let me stop there for a second before I continue reading what else they say here. It is funny that they mention Steve is like a god baby and doesn't know everything, and I like that statement because okay, this is my personal thought, like on crafting discs. Horse I mean, not horse armor, but saddles, things like that. Like things that we aren't able to craft but have to discover. I don't necessarily like that. I think if it's in the game, and this is just me, folks, and I know that. Let me explain a couple things. All right, my personal feeling is I think you should be able to make anything that can be found in the game, especially a horse saddle that's made out of leather. Come on, that's very easy to do, and or that should be very easy to do. That should just take some leather pieces, let's say 5 leather or something, and voila, you got a saddle. You shouldn't have to fish for that or hunt for one all over the overworld. It took me forever before I found a saddle, which is a counter argument there. It pushes the player to go out of their comfort zone and go explore new biomes, which I love that. I really do. I think we do need things like that to make us want to go retrieve materials to craft certain things, but I think it should still be craftable, if that makes sense. I like that they want us to get out there and explore. I do it anyways. Some people I think get stuck in their little areas and just focus there and don't really explore the overworld much or other dimensions. But I'm always scouring the overworld and building villages and trying to find the next beautiful biome to build my next fort on or mountain scape or something like that. Anyways, that's just my opinion. I think we should be able to craft anything that can be found, maybe make the materials to craft that item rare and that you have to find in specific biomes that might be a little bit out of your range or a little bit away from your origin point. I don't know, just a personal opinion. Let's continue on with their comment. And also, since they are a new experiment, seen as how much the world changed already, it could also be maybe why we can't craft stuff like discs. Oh, I'm sorry. I already read that. I'm sorry. Let me skip down here. I like the idea that, okay, they started here. I like the idea that Endermen are just builders who are also infected by a separate end virus rather than a mushroom virus. Ooh, Wither King, you would love that. This theory I'm about to read. And the Nether is a whole other lore on itself. Well, never mind. I guess it wasn't, they didn't elaborate too far into that. But that's interesting. Endermen are just builders who are also infected by a separate end virus rather than a mushroom virus. That's an interesting thought. I'll have to look into that a little bit further. And Nether is a whole other lore on itself with the piglins and zombie pigmen. But it could be similar to like the villagers and zombies in the overworld, which is another thing. What the heck are villagers? Laugh out loud. I guess it would be like the villagers and builders were basically other species of builder or something, but they look so different due to maybe how long ago the plague was. So evolution took course and changed them so much. But I mean, it is just a game and not built around lore entirely. So stuff like how there's blacksmith villagers and armor and Fletcher villagers, yet they can't use any of the things they make to defend themselves doesn't make any sense. LOL. But like, gotta remember spawners. What the heck is their origin? Maybe some evil group wanted to spread the world end, so they made spawners to spread the zombie infection more or something. But then there's also like spiders and skeleton spawners, which also then like where the heck did skeletons come from? Maybe like super old zombies where the skin all rotted away and all there's left is magically floating connected bones, and because they are weak, since just bone, they use a bow and arrow to compensate? Question mark and end quote. Interesting. Interesting. Thank you, anonymous person that has been deleted like their account long ago. That was an amazing comment you left on my theory. I love there's a lot there at the end to go into with the spawners, which I've never really explored much into the spawners. I have encountered them in mine shafts and underground areas. And so yeah, I understand what they're talking about here. And that is a good question. What is their origin? I mean, It does seem like something sinister. It is a wicked looking cage spewing out some evil that's trying to harm you. So that they raise a lot of good points. They made a lot of good points in this comment that I appreciate because that is interesting. And the villagers, I mean, just everything they said, I really enjoyed. I like how they stayed here that the lore on itself, like how there's not really anything set in stone. A lot of this is just loose lore. It's all speculation, theories that are being drawn. There's nothing official really. I mean, there's a little bit, but nothing really concrete put out there by Mojang to give us anything conclusive here. But it's really fun to draw and make our own and form our own theories from all this, like they did and like I did. And that was a great response to what I posted. So thank you very much. I want to move on to theory number 2, as I call this, who's from another anonymous because they deleted their account long ago as well. But I'm going to take another sip of coffee real quick because it is a morning and we're having a relaxing impromptu morning. I hope you all are having a great day so far. I hope you all have some amazing Minecraft plans, or maybe you're doing something fun outside of Minecraft. Oh, it's always good to get away from the screen and have some nice outside time as well. Even though it's that time of year, it's getting cold in some places. UFOs are flying around too. That was a joke about the UFOs. Anyways, sorry, creaky chair too. That's annoying. I need to get a new chair for this podcast. I apologize if you hear the creaking. So, not the creaking, and that was an accident pun. So, let me move on to theory number 2 from, as I said, anonymous, deleted, whoever. Quote, I thought it was a myth that cows turn to mushrooms when on mycelium or the biome. Also, yeah, I agree. Making things and stories like this is really fun to connect the world together. Or maybe it's just to feel that sense of need to know and have an order in life, so we try to connect those loose dots together. I agree, anonymous person. That is what I was just saying. There's nothing really official. I mean, Mojang's released or said a couple things, not really anything, but in the past, I can't even think what they would have been. Like the creeper is made of leaves or something by one of the devs years and years ago. I don't know what came of that, but this I love that statement. Yeah, it's fun to try to connect the loose dots together, as they said, this person. And it's fun to make these stories. And I do agree. I think it's us trying to put a sense of order to life. Let me continue reading on. But also, the igloo is the strongest piece of evidence, I think, about the infection thing. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, it's literally a lab sometimes that spawns underground talking about how to cure the zombification. But that also sort of breaks the idea of villagers being the post apocalyptic species. Since if they were post apocalyptic, then how did they get down there? What thing that came after the builders and before the player? Or maybe was it the builders? Maybe the same thing that also made the player, seeing as how it's both relatively recent. Probably some more lore with the ancient city as well, being that there's a big portal. I mean, an obviously smaller representation of it in the game files was called something like quote unquote portal or something. There's also 2 theories then, one of the zombie and the other of some other dimension taking over. The skulk. Okay, now this is interesting. Maybe it was like a zombie plague at first, and then the remaining builders hid underground, and then tried to find help from a powerful mob to get rid of the plague, but failed instead. Okay, pause. I like this. That's interesting. The ancient builders being driven underground to flee and stay safe from the zombie infection that is reigning above them. That's an interesting theory. It reminds me of the same response I had with the pillager attacks in my city of Silhouette City, which you would be all familiar with if you've listened to the show in the past and been continuously listening. Silhouette City, I made the unfortunate mistake and illogical mistake of building right near a pillager outpost because I didn't know that they kept spawning back after you defeated them there at the time. This was a long time ago, folks. So, pardon my ignorance on the matter. I know it sounds dumb to do, but so they spawned because I hadn't seen them for days. Like after I defeated them, I built a whole village there, and in this new land. And then one day they repopulated and started slaughtering all my villagers. And so, in reaction, after I died so many times, and after I eventually kept them back out at bay, I had to drive my villagers underground. Now there's just remnants of above ground structures from an old city, and the whole population now is under the surface because they still pop up today. They're now a pillager farm. They seem to be contained, but I'm not taking the chances anymore. However, I can see why now, as a reaction to a threat on the surface, you would want to be driven underground, and them coming into this going underground to escape the plague. That would be that's interesting. That's a really interesting thought that they may have stumbled into something else like this portal that they're going into about, or this skulk, I mean. And let me continue. The skulk. Maybe it was like a zombie plague at first, and then the remaining builders hid underground and then tried to find help from a powerful mob to get rid of the plague, but failed instead. Would explain why so much skulk is everywhere. After all, it is basically XP into blocks, and XP comes mainly from other mobs, and no other mobs spawn in the deep dark. And it's not like the mobs are afraid of the skulk either. I don't think it's the warden either, since there's no way that single thing killed off the entire remaining civilization. But maybe they were super underprepared. But now, with the new copper puzzle room things, that's a whole thing on top of the quote unquote Minecraft lore. LOL. Don't know much about it, to be honest. The Illagers, though, I mean, I heard a theory somewhere about them being outcast villagers or something, with the Ravager being a mutated villager while Illagers were playing with God. Pause there. So, yeah, pause there. Sorry. I want to talk about the Illagers since we have just from Mojang, in the past month or two, I've heard from them that they have plans on expanding or doing more with the Illagers, which I'm a fan of. I honestly want to see more Illager infrastructure, and more maybe Illager roles even though they're a nuisance in the overworld, but I like them as a challenge. I would like to see more combat features with them, maybe more tactical things or ways to combat them. I wouldn't mind seeing a whole Illager village, an Illage. Now, I like what they were saying here that maybe they're an outcast, a villager, and about the Ravager being a mutated villager, which I've heard that theory as well. The Ravager being a mutated villager, and I think that does have some validity to it. People fact check me there, but them being outcasts, that does seem to be more apparent. I think I think we're about to learn more from Mojang with the new drop system. I think we'll find out more and more about Illagers and their history as they drop more into the game. Now, the skulk thing that they talked about before all that, I am not personally familiar with it at all, hardly. Obviously, I've heard of the Wither, or not the Wither, but the Warden and skulks and whatnot, but I have never personally came across it, and I haven't been on Chunk Base to look for it. I've only used that for the Pale Garden, and I don't plan on using it again unless I have to. But I hope to come across Skulks and across the Warden and go into the deep dark. I've been all underground. I don't know why I haven't found it yet, but who knows? The world is huge. I will eventually. I have faith. And I'm excited to because I want that experience because I'm going to make episodes over it eventually. So if I have to, I will get on Chunk Base. Well, one way or another, I will come across this stuff and I'll know more, but I don't have anything more to comment on that in their comment that they left. Moving on. Villagers, I think, are the most powerful other than the player. Not in terms of destruction, but the fact that they, like, literally made life and do experiments. Also, the name of the Vindicator. It means to clear of guilt slash suspicion, which I think alludes to some of that lore, but I can't remember nor make out really what it means. Also, with the Allay apparently being what Vexes are before Vexes. That's interesting because I do see a semblance there. Sorry, I had to interject there. Vexes before Vexes, plus mine shafts and stuff, I think hint at the builder civilization being not as powerful as the player slash god. Still just as smart, but not as powerful. I mean, Steve alone, and when they mean by Steve in these comments is Steve's, the ancient builders are referred to be Steve's because Steve looks different than villagers. So the theory is the ancient builders look like Steve. That's why they call him Steve's. Just want to clarify that. I mean, Steve alone can easily destroy any mob with good enough gear. So it's like, well, why couldn't an entire dang civilization protect themselves? I think, like, the fact of mine shafts and the lack of redstone maybe shows that they were more of real life humans. No capability to clear entire forests at once. There are redstone experiment rooms in the ancient cities. So maybe the builders were still trying to figure it out, but they died from some force before they managed to figure it out. Plus, with mine shafts, why dig a 3x3 hole? Why? Only have so few. What's with the minecart rails? I think maybe the builders couldn't actually hold as much, so they kept using chests, minecarts to move things, and you don't really find any good pickaxes left in any chests in the overworld either. Which is an interesting observation that they make there, I think. I mean, I was putting a little bit proof to their theory. I I don't think I've really ever stumbled across many pickaxes now that I think about it. Moving on. But then, like, in cities are so advanced somehow with the diamond tools and things. I am thinking maybe the Endermen were the builders, but just evolved to live in the end. But before they were fully Endermen, they managed to, I don't know what this means, TP to the Nether and Overworld. And maybe that's when they pick back up on advancements, and that's why there are things like diamond tools, enchanted, and the such in city loot. Maybe they made it even further since there's even things like flying ships, which I want to stop there. I have found 2 flying ships in my world. I posted them on my Reddit. I posted them on my Twitter. I posted them, I believe, maybe one on my Blue Sky account. So if you haven't seen mine that I posted, go check that out on my Reddit on, I believe, realmnews. Or just go to my profile at Night of the Prairie, which you should be able to find that on my bio link. But the ships, I remember I posted something about that, and somebody gave me some flack about them being a glitch, but these glitches are constant and everywhere. It almost seems to me that there's more behind this quote unquote glitch. You have to remember the creeper was a glitch as well. And we can play around with glitches in this game and allude to them as lore. It would make sense if they had ships, flying ships is what I'm talking about. Because I've, like I said, found 2 that are about close to 200 blocks in the air. And I've gone up to them and found, and it's always one half of them. The other half is broken off and directly in the ocean. It's funny that it is perfectly broken off and under, like, right directly under it. It's almost like something happened to it up in the air, like some incident, maybe an attack, an aerial attack, and they half of that ship lost its flotation power when it broke away, and it just plummeted to the ocean and fell and sank to the ocean floor, because these are always on the ocean floor. And it's amazing to me because it really looks bizarre to see flying ships. They aren't shipwrecked. These are just literally flying. I love it. And so I like that they make the comment there. Moving on. There are shipwrecks of full ships, not just a little craftable boat, but so maybe back then it worked. And even the elytra. Maybe the ships were using elytra technology. But they evolved even further, and that's why Endermen, all they can do is pick up blocks, a leftover trait of their old builder form. End quote. That's interesting as well, to think that the Endermen were evolved ancient builders that evolved to go into the end. I don't know. It's extremely interesting. I follow the Withered King and their videos on YouTube, and that's where I get all my Ender and the end information. I recommend go and check out their amazing YouTube site. It's really good. And their theories are really solid, and they do really, really great research. So I love that comment as well. Stranger, anonymous, deleted person that left that comment. That was really interesting. I remember reading that a year ago, and I had fun with that. Let me see here. I want to see if I got any more. This person, whole underscore second 6577 from 10 months ago, goes on to say, I have to agree with this. I think the reason of the lack of mobs on the Mushroom Islands, let's call it MI, is not because the mushrooms were infectious. Since Dark Wood Forest also has some giant mushrooms, but they didn't affect anyone, my theory is that Mushroom Island was actually the remnant of the old giant mushrooms that once roamed the earth, hence why they are rare. If you're interested to know more, just read my comment under this post and hope you all find it highly logical. Where is it? I never saw it, but um that is interesting that they're just remnants from an ancient old world, like a prehistoric world with large mushrooms, and maybe they aren't harmful at all. You know, I don't know. Let's see here. Oh, here's whole underscore second 6577 again. I will read this, and let's make this our last comment from them. And for this today's impromptu episode. Quote, well, I know that there will be some disagreement and debate on the internet, and this will be one of those examples. I highly disagree with your theory because, in my opinion, Mushroom Islands is actually a remnant of the old fungi that once dominated our ecosystem. For clarification, about 300 to 400 million years ago, our world, the real Earth, was actually covered with giant mushrooms, but they are different from the mushrooms that we know today because unlike the modern mushrooms, they lack a cap and they are also giants. In other words, they are as tall as a modern tree. It was said that the reason why they grow that tall is because of the lack of animals to feast on them. Interesting. Okay. Although there are already some animals exist during that time, but they did not possess a threat to the growth of these fungi, since some of them are still bacteria or maybe a small multicellular organism. With lack of competition, these fungi dominates our planet, but they soon disappear as other complex organisms start to roam the lands. My theory is that the Mushroom Islands is actually the remnants of the past. This explains why they are so rare, because old materials or something are rarer, just like the rarity of an ember or a fossil. And why they only take form of an island is because if they are connected on a major landmass, the fungi on that island will soon be eradicated as the animals feast on them. Furthermore, with the lack of mobs in that island, further supports this theory since there are no other animals that once roam our planet during this period. But maybe you are wondering about how does this mushroom cow exist? Well, I have no idea either. My brain is too small for finding the answer. Although this is don't say that. Although this is my own perspective and we may have some different ideas. I just hope we'll still be civilized monkeys after this. And I went on and said this. Haha, of course, we are all civilized monkeys here, my friend. I really enjoyed reading your response, and your theory makes a whole lot of sense. Obviously, I approached it from a different direction, but I can see your theory holding water and even being more cohesive than my own. You will more than likely disagree with my second episode that airs tomorrow. That was when I was making my second episode. It is called Mushroom Island and Zombie Spores. And that is what it's called, folks. Go listen to it. Um, so I am giving my theory on it, but like I said in the podcast, I want everyone to comment on it. I want people to disagree with it. That shows to me people are thinking thinking, and that's what I want to do, and I still do. I want to promote thought on this show. I love that. And that has always been Realm News' ethos, is to have civilized discussion on Realm News. So, where was I on that? I'm going to cover a mega overworld theory one day on this show, and I don't agree with it, but I think it is interesting. I may need to pick your brain for some show ideas, my friend. Thanks again for the response. And yes, I want to say thank you again, whole_second 6577 from 10 months ago. It's still a great post. And honestly, it was intriguing to learn. And I may have to fact check because I always like to find legit sources, but I do believe you. I do. But I do like to learn things that, like they stated, that these large mushrooms were from around 300 to 400 million years ago, and that was very interesting to learn from them that they got that big or became that big because there wasn't any other fauna around able to kill them off. They allowed them to live, or there wasn't anything threatening enough towards fungi at the time. Very interesting stuff. And that is my last comment today on this, folks. This has been a blast. I've had a lot of fun recording this live for the first time. This isn't the first time I've done something live. On Halloween, I read the story of Stingy Jack live on Twitter, but this is the first actual episode I've ever done live. And as I said, this is being recorded, and I will post this about 3 weeks from now. For those of you who missed this live recording, will be able to hear it. But yeah, I may have to do this again. This was really fun. I don't know. There's something different about recording live. At first, I was a little bit on edge, if you couldn't tell. I felt a little, I can't edit this after I'm done. I can, but this is all very raw. And that's why the way I like to keep it, anyways. If you've been listening to the show, you can probably tell it sounds very organic. I, I have my flaws when I speak. And you know what? I rarely go back and delete those because I mean, I'm going to make mistakes when I talk, but I rarely will run it through some algorithm that will clean it up. I do all the editing myself, but I had a great time doing this impromptu episode. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday, Realm News Flash, and next Thursday, this upcoming Thursday. I don't remember what we're going to be talking about because I don't have it in front of me, but it's going to be great. I can promise you that. In fact, I think it's about villages, if I recall right. We just got done with the glass bottle. This may be about villages. But I wish you all a great rest of your weekend since I'm recording on Saturday. I hope you have fun plans. Happy crafting. And the dark Lord. Signing out. Hello, Realm News fans. I just wanted to pop back in here and just tell you all how much I appreciate you for listening to the show. It means the world to me that you tune in every week to hear me, the Dark Lord, the one who puts the real in realm and expands your mind one block at a time. I am honored to be your host and to be able to deliver to you weekly original Minecraft content, with Realm News Flash and Realm News on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you enjoyed the show, I would love it if you would tell your friends about it and tell them to follow the show. Hit that like button and leave a comment. I know that on Spotify you can leave comments on individual episodes, same on Good Pods. I'm not sure on all the other podcast player platforms out there, but I appreciate the feedback, so please comment if you are able to. If you cannot comment wherever you listen to Realm News, then you can by following Realm News at either its Twitter, now X, Blue Sky, Reddit, or email, which is all found at bio.link/realmnews, which is all lowercase. Again, that is bio.link/realmnews. There you can also make a monetary donation by clicking on the Ko-Fi link. I put in about 30 hours a week in research, writing, editing, marketing, recording, social media, and much more in creating and keeping this show running. The donations would help me eventually give up my second job so I can focus more on this podcast and deliver more content with better quality to you. I understand times are tough, and I do not expect anyone to give me money. I'm just saying that if you are able to, it's much appreciated. However, you can show your appreciation by just listening, liking, following, or recommending the show, as I said earlier. That means much more than you would ever know. With that said, I wish you all happy crafting, and I look forward to talking to you at the next Realm News episode. The Dark Lord, signing out.